Hello, welcome or welcome back. I have accumulated quite a few books in the past few weeks. It started with Target having their buy two get one free deal, so I went a little bit crazy with that. Then I was like, oh, there's a couple books that I want from Barnes & Noble. I might as well order those while I'm at it. And then of course, anytime I buy from Amazon, I cannot place an order without also ordering a book. And now, because of all of that, we are now here with 23 new books. We have lots of first books in series, some sequels. I think there are a couple standalone books, but I think most of these books are series. So let's just start opening these boxes. We'll start with Target since that is the biggest portion of this haul. As these packages have been getting delivered the past few weeks, I have been so tempted to open them right away, but I have been resisting so that I can wait until now to open them. And I am so excited. I love getting new books. This box only had one book, which is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This is a fantasy romance book. I honestly have zero clue what this book is about, but I have heard very good things. It's the first book in a new series. I think the second book is going to come out sometime in 2025. So just reading the synopsis, it seems like the main character is in a marriage that she does not want, but she wants to become a warrior and also kill her husband and then protect her people. And then I'm assuming she'll run into some guy that will become the love interest. I have zero clue, but I'm hoping this is as good as everyone is saying. I've heard really good things, so I'm just gonna go into this blind and then hope for the best. I believe this next box has 9 books in it. Okay, first book in this box is A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This is the first book in the Sacred Stones series. Oh geez, I think there's 3 books out currently for this series. I bought a lot of these books having zero clue what they're about, just like the general idea, or I've heard them from somewhere else and they sounded good enough for me to buy. So for a lot of these books, I'm not gonna be able to give the full synopsis as to what they're about, but I just buy books based on the general vibe I get from them. And this is a dark fantasy romance. I've been loving dark fantasy romance or just gothic fantasy romance, and so I've heard pretty good things about this series. But in this book, the main character is captured by the King of Darkness, and I think she's trying to escape this kingdom somehow. That's literally all I know. I do wish this series came in hardcovers because I do personally prefer hardcover books over paperback, but they only have the paperbacks, so I settled with that. On the bright side, paperbacks are cheaper, so that's a win, but I'm also very aesthetic when I buy books and I just want them to look pretty on my bookshelf. I don't know if that's the most logical thing, but I just like to look at them. Okay, I'm reading the back more. It seems like she's captured by the King of Darkness, and as she's trying to escape, she meets this fellow prisoner who is supposed to help her get out with him, I think. But it seems like he might be the love interest, not the King of Darkness. So it seems like this entire book takes place of her trying to escape this kingdom, and then dormant in her, she has this power, which of course, because I feel like in so many fantasy romance books, the main character always turns out to be like the most powerful person in all of the world, and she just does not know it yet. So that sounds like that is going to be in this book too, but I'm hoping for the best. If I like this first book, I will buy the rest of the series. I don't know how many books are supposed to end up being in this series. Is it just going to be 4 books? No idea. Next book is A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair. This is another fantasy romance book. I think almost every book I bought was fantasy romance or fantasy. This is the first book in the Halfling saga. This is one of those books where every time I went to the store, I would pick it up and be like, oh, maybe I should buy this, and then I just never did. So I finally pulled the trigger and ended up picking this up. But I've heard really good things about it overall. I don't see a ton of people talking about this, but I think in general it's pretty popular. And the main character is an assassin. If I remember right, I think there's LGBT representation in this book, if I'm remembering correctly. I think I saw that online when I was looking it up. And I do believe this is a completed series. I think there are 4 or 5 books out. So we got another series to add to my mini series I'm already in the middle of. Up next is These Infinite Threads by Tahara Mafi. This is the second book in the Woven Kingdom series. There are currently 3 books out in this series, but it's supposed to be a 5-book series in total, but the last 2 books obviously aren't out yet. This is a very very character-based fantasy romance book. It almost reads literary, which I wasn't a huge fan of. It's very well written, but I'm not a huge fan of literary fiction, so I didn't love the first book, but I did really enjoy the ending, which is why I picked up the second book, because I have a feeling I'm going to like this second book better than the first one. But most people I've seen that talk about this online and on Booktube absolutely love this series. So if you like fantasy romance and literary fiction, I think you will really enjoy this series. So I'm looking forward to reading the second book, and I'm hoping I love it so that I can pick up the third book, because I like to finish series and books. I don't like to give up on series, so I'm hoping I like this enough to continue, but we will see. Next up, we have The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. This is an epic fantasy standalone book. So our first standalone book, which will be good when I need a break from all the series I'm in the middle of. I believe this came out towards the end of 2022, and I have seen only good things about this book. I do not think I've seen a poor review yet. So I'm really excited to read this because of all the fantastic reviews I've read about it. But again, I don't really know what this is about, but it seems like there's two warriors that we're focusing on this book, and they're shepherding an ancient god across a broken land to end the reign of a royal family. So I'm guessing on this journey they'll run into some dangers, and it's sort of, there's some adventure. No idea, but again, great reviews, so I do have high hopes for this book, and I hope I love it as much as everyone else does. And then we have The Cool Prince by Holly Black. Honestly, I'm surprised I have not read this yet. I feel like everyone who reads fantasy romance has already read this book, and so I'm really excited for this book. I do have high hopes because of how much everyone else seems to love it and how popular it is. It is a YA fantasy romance book. However, I know this book is very focused on the political intrigue and like more the fantasy aspect, and then the romance is a subplot, which that is a green flag for me because I am very much a plot focused person when it comes to fantasy romance. I like the focus to be on the fantasy and then for the romance to be a subplot. So I have a feeling this is going to be right up my alley, but I didn't want to buy the box set just in case I didn't like it. So I only bought the first book, but if I do like this first book, then I'll just go ahead and buy the rest of the series and then maybe binge them. And from a lot of the reviews I've seen, a lot of people really like the female main character in this. Like, it's one of their favorite female main characters in all of fantasy romance. So I am looking forward to that and seeing if I agree. But again, very excited about this. I'm very excited about all the books I have, and I wish I could read faster so I could get to all of them quicker. Next up, we have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This is a YA fantasy romance book. I picked up a few YA books in this haul, even though I'm not usually the biggest fan of YA, but they are really good, easy reads and just something quick to get through. And I do find YA books really good to keep me out of a reading slump or to get me out of one. So a few of these YA books are just like good, easy reads. But honestly, I picked this book up because I heard there's trials in it, and any fantasy romance book with a trial or a competition, I instantly like more. I don't know what it is. I just love competitions and trials and fantasy romance. I have no reasoning for it. I just really enjoy it. And so I picked this up for that reason alone. No idea if it's good. I honestly don't even know if this is highly loved or not. I just picked it up for that reason. So fingers crossed it's good, but no idea. Then we have Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This is another book that I've been wanting to pick up for a long time, but I just kept not buying it. And so I finally bought it, and I'm very excited to read this. This is another fantasy book. I've heard it's very fast paced and there's a lot of fighting and combat. I hear it recommended for people who are looking for a fantasy book after reading Red Rising, because Red Rising has a lot of action and it's very fast paced. And so this gives that same vibe. And I love a good fast-paced fantasy book, and then fighting and lots of death in it is just a bonus. So I think this is going to be a good time. And then the last book in this box is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is like a fantasy romance dark academia book. I believe this is a completed trilogy, and honestly it just seemed like a good vibe. And this book is pretty dang short. It's like only 300 pages, so I'm assuming this will be a really quick, easy read. I feel like dark academia is very much a fall vibe. We're heading into winter, but I think dark academia works for winter too. Fall, winter, close enough. But that's all I know about it. Dark School of Magic. I'm sure there'll be some drama in it. Seems like a good time to me. Moving on to the next box. I think this is the last box from Target. Okay, this box is actually Barnes & Noble. I have 2 books in here. First book is A Kiss of Iron by Claire Sager. I've heard amazing things about this series, and I believe the 3rd and final book in this trilogy comes out in December, or did it already come out? I'm pretty sure it comes out in December. So I was like, you know what? It's the perfect time to pick this book up because the 3rd and final one's finally coming out. And so I was like, I can pick up this book, and then if I like this book, I can get the next 2 books and have a completed series. Another thing that made me get this book is the fact that it is pretty long. It's about 600 pages. And if you don't know, I love chunky fantasy romance books, like 600 pages or more. I love that. And so the fact that this book is so long, I was like, you know what? That's for me. But because it is so long, hopefully I do actually enjoy this book, because otherwise that will suck. I have zero clue what this is about, but it's just one of those things where I got the right vibe from it. But based on the cover, I'm assuming it has to do with clashing kingdoms or something. That's my best guess. I want to go into this book blind so that I have the best time. I think going into books blind is the best. So I'm just hoping for the best, and I am very, very excited to read this. Honestly, this might be my next read. The second book in this box, I am so excited for. Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance by Melissa K. Roerich. This is the 3rd book in the Legacy series. There are going to be 4 books total in this series. This literally just came out at the end of October, and I am so beyond excited to read this book. This is another dark fantasy romance series. When I say dark fantasy romance, like, this series is dark, and none of the characters are likable. Pretty much all of them are morally gray, and I don't know. I love this series so much. It has quickly become my favorite dark fantasy romance series I've ever read. However, this book will decide if that continues to reign true or not. I'm hoping this is as good as the first 2 books, but we will see. Now that I have this in my hands, I'm not sure if I want to read A Kiss of Iron or this next. I'm not sure, but both very, very excited for. Okay, next box, we have Amazon. This box just had 1 book as well, which is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the first book in the Kingdom of Wicked trilogy, I believe. I haven't heard the best things about this series. I hear the first book is pretty good, and then it just goes downhill for the rest of the series. But I was looking at reading Throne of Secrets, and then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to read the Kingdom of the Wicked first. And then I saw that the hardcover was on sale for $8 on Amazon. I was like, you know what? I think it's meant to be. $8 for a hardcover, pretty good price if you ask me. And so I decided to pick it up. I really like all the house drawings on the inside. Does this count as a map though? Like, it's sort of a map, but it's really just drawings of all these castles. There's like the House of Envy and House of Gluttony. I have no idea what this series is about. I know like the first book in this series is YA, and the second book is new adult, and then the 3rd book is like a true adult book. I'm curious to see how that will go. Again, have not heard the best things, but I'm intrigued. I hope I like this first book, and then I'll pick up the second book. I don't have like the highest expectations for this series, but I'm just hoping it's like entertaining enough. And another reason I picked up this book is just because I wanted to see if I liked this author's writing, because I've been interested in reading Throne of Secrets, which just recently came out. But I don't know, when I went to the store to pick up Throne of Secrets, something was stopping me from buying that book. And I was like, you know what? Let me backtrack and try Kingdom of the Wicked first. And then if I like this book or this series, then I'll go ahead and read Throne of Secrets or Throne of the Fallen. So this book is like a test run to see if I like this author's writing and just in general her style. Okay, we have 1 more box, and then we have this stack of books that I've been accumulating over the past few weeks. Okay, I believe this is actually the last box from Target. All right, this first book, we got a real brick of a book. We got The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight Archives, and I'm really excited to read this, but I'm also very intimidated and a little bit scared because it is so long. It's literally 1,000 pages. I've never read a book that long in my entire life, so I'm a little bit scared, but I've heard nothing but good things. And the 5th book in this series comes out at the beginning of December, which is why I picked up this first book, because I saw that and it inspired me to finally start on this series. The map is so pretty on the inside. It is not often you get colored maps in a book, but I hope I love this. If I read 1,000 pages and I don't love this, I'm going to be kind of upset. So I'm hoping I love this, because I feel like this is one of the most well-loved series of all time, honestly. A little bit scared, but we will get through it eventually. Then we have The Silver Blood Promise by James Logan. This is a debut novel. It is fantasy. I, again, don't really know what this is about, but I hear it's very fun and very fast-paced. And like I said, I love a good fast-paced fantasy book, so I'm hoping this is good. I've seen generally pretty positive things. I've seen some meh things, but at the end of the day, I guess you gotta read it yourself to see, because not everyone's gonna like the same thing. This was kind of a cover buy. I saw the cover, thought it looked cool, and then the title also sounded kind of cool, so I was like, you know what? I will pick that up. The first thing on the synopsis is enter a city of traitors and thieves, monsters and murderers. So you know, that already sounds like a pretty good time to me. Traitors, thieves, monsters, murderers. Seems fun. But I don't know, this seems like a good time, so I'm hoping for the best. All right, last book in this box is Threaded by Tay Rose. This is a newly released fantasy romance book. I honestly have not really seen anyone talk about this book, but I saw it when I was scrolling on Amazon, just looking through all the fantasy romance books, and this popped up and it just caught my eye. Seems like the main character is thrown into a world of politics, and then it turns out she has some hidden magic. And let's see. Oh, I know why I picked this book up. I had no idea what this was about, and I was like, why did I pick this book up again? It's because the love interest is her like security guard, and I was like, a bodyguard love interest? Sign me up. So that's literally why I picked up this book, because the love interest is her bodyguard, and I was like, that sounds great. Thank you very much. I'm very excited. The bodyguard love interest, I don't know what it is. That's a vibe. I'm excited. I can't wait. Okay, now let's go through this stack of books over here that I've been accumulating. I think these are all from Target and Amazon, if I'm remembering correctly. So the first book I actually just picked up this morning. It is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. This just came out. It is the third book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I love Carissa Broadbent's writing, and I love the first two books in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, so I'm hyped to read this book. And since it just came out, there hasn't been too many reviews about it yet, but from what I have seen, some people are saying it's better than the first two books. And if this is better than the first two books, I am going to absolutely eat this up. Basically, the Crowns of Nyaxia series, it's going to be 6 books in total. There's 3 books out currently. Going to be 3 duets. So the first 2 books focus on one couple, and then the next 2 books focus on another couple, and then the final 2 books are going to be another couple, presumably. And so this focuses on a side character from the first 2 books, which honestly, when I read those books, I was like kind of neutral on this side character, but because of the good reviews I've seen for this book so far, my expectations have gone up a little bit. So I cannot wait. I always love her hardcovers because look at how pretty that is. The bird, oh, I love it. I can't wait to put this on my bookshelf with all of my other Carissa Broadbent books. I cannot wait to read this. But this next book is from Amazon. It is Anathema by Carrie Lake. This was another cover buy. I found this when I was on Goodreads. I was just going through the Discover tab and like looking through books. When I was scrolling through on Goodreads, this popped up and instantly I was like, add that to my want to read list. And then I bought it a day later. But I don't know, this cover just called to me, and it is a Gothic fantasy romance book. There's a little bit of horror. I actually just read this book, but spoiler, 5 stars. Absolutely loved this book. I'm so glad I picked this up. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but it worked out in this case, and I absolutely love this book. It is going to be a duology, and I believe the second book comes out in April 2025. I'm so excited. If you are into Gothic fantasy or you're looking for something with a little more spooky vibes, I would highly recommend this book. And also the main character, one of my new favorites. Definitely in my like top 5 fantasy romances of 2024. Next, we have the Zodiac Academy. I honestly, I don't know how I feel going into this book. I hear this is like a guilty pleasure fantasy romance book. The romance in it is like kind of a bully romance, so I hear it's kind of hard to get through. It's just like a fun read. I don't know. I don't know what my expectations are even supposed to be going into this book. I've heard both very good things and very bad things. So I think I'm just gonna go in open-minded and try to have a good time. Hopefully I like it. I think the final book came out not too long ago. I think there's 9 books in this series, but honestly, I've heard the last couple books aren't very good. So we will see. I have no idea. If you have read this book, let me know your thoughts because I don't know how to feel. Then we have Gleam by Raven Kennedy. This is the 3rd book in the Plated Prisoner series. This is is a chunky book. I will say the paperbacks of the Played Prisoner series are really fast to read because the pages are pretty short. So even though this is a real brick of a book, I think it will be pretty quick to get through. But honestly, I read the first book, did not like it, gave it 2 stars, thought it was not good at all. But the end of it did catch my attention, and I have higher hopes for the second book. And then I also heard good things about the third book. So I was like, let me at least read the first 3, but I'll probably end up reading the entire series. I don't know why I've dedicated myself to reading this entire series, but I'm just determined to read them. But I'm planning on reading the second book soon, and then hopefully I can get to this third book in the next couple of months. But if you've read this series, let me know your thoughts. I hear the first half of this series is good, and then the second half starts to go downhill a little bit. Like, it should have been kept a trilogy, but they ended up releasing 6 books, and hopefully it does get better in book 2 because I do already own the first 3 books. So I am hoping for the best. Then we have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I feel like I've seen this everywhere. I've been avoiding it because I've seen it so much. I'm like, I don't want to pick it up. I don't let the hype get to me. But then of course the hype got to me, and so I ended up picking it up. This is a Gothic fantasy book, and I believe the magic system has to do with cards, which actually sounds really cool. I'm hoping it'll be a fun time. And since it is Gothic fantasy, I think it will have good vibes because based on Anathema, I like the good Gothic spooky vibes. I'm hoping I like this, especially considering how popular it is. This is a duology. The second book is Two Twisted Crowns, which I've seen people either love or are kind of disappointed with where the story goes. So we will see how I feel after I read this first book, and if I will even pick up the second book. Only time will tell, but hopefully I like it because I own it now. Then we have Thrown in the Dark. This is the first book in the Villains and Virtues fantasy romance series. I am in the fantasy romance subreddit, and I see this book recommended literally every day. So I was like, you know what? I will finally pick it up and read it since I keep seeing it and I need to know if I will like it or not. Here, this is a little bit satirical and it's very slow burn, which piqued my interest because I like a slow burn romance. I don't like insta-lust. The female main character is just this bubbly blonde. So she's like sunshine, and then he's like this grumpy guy because he's the son of a demon. But I've heard really good things, so I'm hoping I like this. I think there's 5 books in this series. Let me look it up. Okay, this is actually a trilogy, and then there's like a spin-off book. So there's just 3 books, and this is pretty short. It's a little bit over 300 pages, so I'm just hoping for the best. I think this will be really good if I read like a heavy, darker fantasy romance book and I just want something fun. I think this will be a good pick. We have Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinneman. This is the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I really enjoyed the first book. It was a lot of fun. It is a lit RPG book where the apocalypse is basically being televised, and we follow this main character Carl and his ex-girlfriend's Kat as they try to survive this video game show type of deal / end of the world. And it is just a lot of fun. If you are a fan of video games, I would highly recommend this series. And I picked up this second book because honestly I think this series is just a fun pick-me-up in between like bigger, heavier, more serious fantasy and fantasy romance series. There are currently 7 books out in this series. The 7th book just came out. I don't know if that's the final one or not, but there are quite a few books, so I am looking forward to continuing on this series sporadically. It's not like a high priority series, but it's just like a fun palate cleanser series for me. We only have 2 books to go. So we have The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. She is also the author of A Fate Inked in Blood that we talked about earlier, and I have never read a book by her, so hopefully I like her writing since I now have 2 books by this author. But again, this is another fantasy romance book that I have no idea what it's about, but I've heard good things about this series in general. I've heard the first book like isn't the best, which seems to be the way with a lot of fantasy romance series. I feel like the first book is always like, meh, it's okay, and then the second and third book really get good, which I heard the same thing for this series. There's currently 4 books out in this series, and then I believe the 5th book comes out in a few months. So I'm hoping I really like this, and I really like the new covers. They just got re-released in these paperbacks. From the back of the book, it looks like there's a lot of political intrigue, so maybe this is more focused on the fantasy with a romance subplot. I could be wrong, but that's just the vibe I'm getting from the back of the book, which is a good thing for me because like I mentioned, I prefer that. For me, I need a good story in my fantasy romance books. I don't want a ton of spice. Like, some spice is fine, but if that is the main focus in a fantasy romance book, I'm probably not going to love it. But with that being said, hopefully this gives me the right vibes. I don't really know what to expect going into it, but I am hoping hoping for the best. Last, and actually this book might be least because I have read this and it was not good. We have 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. This is a YA thriller book. I picked this up strictly to get me out of a reading slump. This was not on my list of books I want to pick up and read, but I was in a really bad reading slump, and so I went to Target and I was like, let me just pick an easy, fast-paced books from what is here. And this stood out to me because it is one, a YA thriller, very fast-paced. It involves, the entire book is taken place over the course of 8 hours, and 6 friends are on this road trip, and at the end of the night only 5 survive, and we're just trying to figure out what is going on. And so it was very easy to read, very quick to get through. So it did the job it needed to do to get me out of a reading slump, but the book itself was not good, like 2 stars at most. One of my least favorite thrillers I've read, but I literally bought this only to get me out of reading slump, and it did do that because it was very easy, very fast. But if you are looking for a good thriller to read, I wouldn't recommend this book. And that is all 23 books I have purchased recently. I am very excited for all of these books. I hope I like them, but also if I do, that means that we have some sequels to purchase. We have a lot of first books in series here. As soon as I finish a book that I like and it's the first book in a series, I feel the need to buy the second book almost immediately. So that is a slight problem, but there are worse things. I love getting new books, and there's nothing I love more than reading, so I think it's okay. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these books and your thoughts on them. And anyways, thank you again for joining me for this video. I appreciate you so much. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one. I love you. Bye.